Okay, we're rolling.
This old-time radio program was originally aired live, long before the advent of high fidelity. As a result, you may detect an occasional surface noise or volume drop due to transmission problems so common to old radio. We hope, however, that any variance in audio quality will not take away from your pleasure in listening to this, one of the all-time favorite shows.
Hey, welcome back to the How to Podcast series. It's Dave with you. Not a radio show. No, don't worry. Don't press stop. Not yet. I tried my hardest to listen to a morning show, chopped up into segments, all the music removed, the weather, the traffic, all the stuff removed from the show, and then the morning show then released as a podcast. And I went, is this what we're doing now? Really? Do we really need this? Is this the best use of content from a radio show? And I think not. So I want to talk about this. I want to talk about reheated radio versus native podcasts. Are radio listeners drawn to recycled morning shows or podcast first content? You're going to hear my bias. And if you love radio, you might want to stop right about here because you might not like what I'm going to have to say. Here we go. So you take out all of the parts of a radio show, morning show, afternoon drive, whatever, overnights. You take out all of the things that aren't covered by licensing. So all of the music would be removed. And it's funny, I heard people, a radio show complaining about the fact that there was no podcast awards at the Golden Globes. And they're like, we've been doing talk radio longer than podcasting. And they were like just complaining and moaning about the fact that, well, we didn't get an award as a radio. We were here first. All this kind of stuff, right? And as I'm driving home listening to these radio hosts lament over the fact that there's no award for radio people, but there's one for podcasters. It's just, for me, it was like, I was thinking in my head, I just yelled out to my car speaker, but you play music and you just talk between songs, right? You do the weather and you do the traffic on the nines and maybe something from Hollywood news, and you laugh at stupid jokes and that's it. You know, that's radio nowadays. And it's not local by any means. Most of it's plugged in from some other outside of province, state, wherever, piped in fake AI voices and hosts that pretend that they live where you live, and I could go on and on. Radio is just done. And then add in AM radio. Do you remember what that is? Yeah. AM radio is basically talk radio, and it's dying. Like, the audience is literally dying off for that medium. So when I see radio just using podcasts as a dumping ground for content to put their foot in the door, I don't feel as a consumer that it is a podcast first strategy. It is more of it's reheated radio. And for me, I don't see the appeal for this. I did try listening and I couldn't make it through. So I'm on a huge kick in 2026 that we need to really embrace podcast first content. Podcast first content could then be expanded to video and YouTube and all these other places. We as podcasters need to show up and be focused on creating podcasts first. Podcasts are not a dumping ground for recycled content that people really don't care about. Podcasts are to be the first thing in our mind as podcasters, and we need to protect it. A radio show stripped of the music, weather, and traffic, then released as a podcast, it's just recycled radio content. There's not a podcast first strategy behind it at all. And true podcasting prioritizes on-demand evergreen conversations designed for RSS distribution and listener control. This approach just repurposes linear broadcast segments with minimal adaptation. It's not designed for the medium. It's not designed for podcast audiences. It's a dumping ground. That's all it is. It's a dumping ground for content. They can slap some ads on it and make a little bit more cash, because, that's what radio wants to do, just make more cash, and as many commercials as we can get in there, the better. It's just another way to make money. Recycled radio versus podcast first content. What do you feel most drawn to? For me, my bias is showing, but it's not recycled radio. It's not reheated content. That's for sure. Recycled radio just takes live, time-bound segments, chopped to remove non-talk segments, and then drops them into a podcast app. Stations see it as a low-effort audience extension, and fans catch up on missed bits via Spotify or Apple. Examples like your favorite radio station from where you live. They succeed because their loyal listeners already love the voices and chemistry of the show, but they're just treating episodes as kind of a best of, kind of a catch-up content. And I don't know. For me, it's not podcast first. It's not focused on the listener. It's focused on, well, we've already recorded it. We might as well release it over here too. It's a dumping ground. Really. Podcast first content builds episodes from the ground up for non-linear listening, deeper dives into content and going beyond the story and involving the audience, having a listener focus to what we do. Self-contained stories, no recap of what you missed on the radio. And formats like serialized or narratives or solo reflections that shine without broadcast constraints. We have no time clock. We have no music to go to. We have no weather and traffic reports to give you. RSS ownership stays central, not sliced into station apps. We have something different, and I think we need to protect it. Stations leverage podcasting this way because it's cheap. You edit it once, you distribute it everywhere, and it captures second listens from time-shifted audiences. Critics call it a recycle bin, since it rarely competes with the native podcasts for Discovery podcast charts. They don't favor these kind of shows. They favor purpose-built podcast and purpose-built content. So you're not going to see a, Dave in the Morning Crew in the top Apple charts, because who cares, right? Who cares? It's not podcast first. I'm not going to say it's not a podcast. I'm going to say it's not podcast first. And I think that's the big miss here. Does radio dumping recycled, reheated content into podcast feeds, does it harm podcasting or is it effective? I'm curious. What are your thoughts? See, I can only speak for myself. I'm just one person, right? And I'm curious to hear your thoughts. You might not even be aware that your radio station does this, but they do, and you'll hear them advertise on their show. Hey, listen later with our podcast. And I just kind of, my mind and my skin crawls a little bit. I'm just like, oh, really? What about the effectiveness? For stations, is it effective? Yes, modestly. Repurposed shows like morning shows and best ofs, they retain 10 to 30% of the live audience, maybe. As podcast listeners, it does boost their station apps, and it helps them to sell repeat sponsorships. They rarely crack top podcast charts, but extend the brand reach cheaply. It's a cheap form of, what are we going to do with this now that it's done? I don't know, throw it on a podcast app. Does it harm podcasting? Well, I would say minimal to medium. But it does dilute what a podcast is as a term. Listeners browsing Spotify see radio slop next to polished independence and potentially training expectations downward. It reinforces the platform lock-in station apps over RSS players, and it trains creators that slap it together just works. And it stunts innovation, I think, overall. It's a bad representation of what a podcast could be. Is it fine to do it? Fine. You can, like, there's an audience, apparently. There's people listening, because otherwise they wouldn't do it at all. But for me, I just find it to be not a great example for new podcasters, not a great example for new listeners on what a podcast is. It's a bunch of content slapped together, yank out all the good parts, and here's what we got left over. It's a plate full of leftovers the day after Thanksgiving. That's what it is. The bottom line, recycled radio pads the stats without stealing podcast thunder. True podcasts first from stations could dominate niches like local culture or expertise, but most lack the initiative and an incentive to do this. Live ratings still pay the bills in a radio station. Podcasting is something that radio people that are in radio currently and haven't been fired yet, they just turn their noses at this. Podcasters win by staying audio first, having a video strategy, and leveraging RSS-owned original content. We don't have to get permission. We don't need a radio station. We don't need to go to school to learn how to do this. We create what we want to create. There's no station manager. There's nobody looking over our shoulder. We don't have to go to legal. We can do whatever the heck we want. We can win, we can succeed, we can fail, but it's all up to us. And as a content creator, I just think that these recycled, reheated morning shows, afternoon drive, or overnights, repackaged as a podcast, does really very little to make podcasting more attractive to new listeners and to new creators. It's my opinion. I'm allowed to have one, and so are you, and I'd love to hear your thoughts. And if you're a radio person listening to this and I just made you very upset, then leave me a comment. If you're listening on Spotify, you can leave comments right in the episode. If you're listening on YouTube, you can leave comments there. Or if you want to have a conversation, I'd love to talk to you as well. And maybe there's a better way that radio stations can leverage podcasting. Maybe this is something that sparks a radio station, goes, you know what? Maybe this Dave guy's got some credible thoughts. Maybe we can do something a little bit more than just chopping out the spoken parts from our radio show and slapping it onto a podcast app. Maybe we could do something a little bit more. I don't know. It'd be great to have some kind of interaction with the podcaster. It'd be great to have some kind of back and forth. Maybe there's a live component to the radio show during the show where podcast listeners can listen live to the recording of the radio show. You know how hard it is to call in and get anybody to pick up the phone at a radio station. Again, most people don't even work there. So it would be great to have some kind of live version of the radio show as a podcast. That's a possibility. You couldn't go live. There's some apps that'll let you go live as a podcaster. There's an answer here. And as much as I'm here kind of complaining, it sounds like, there's an answer to this. I don't know what it is, but as a listener of podcasts, I just find that recycled radio, reheated radio content doesn't make podcasting seem more attractive. That's my opinion. I'd love to hear yours at howtopodcast.ca. Thanks for being here. Thanks for listening. Keep podcasting. Hey, thanks for being part of the podcast today. Just a reminder, on February 13th to February 14th, we're going to do something a little different on the How to Podcast series. We're going to go and do 24 episodes in 24 hours, a marathon, self-imposed. We're going to create an episode every hour on the hour and release it over a 24-hour period. We're going to go live. We're going to do some live streaming. We're going to be live on social media. We're going to be live on LinkedIn and YouTube and a bunch of different things. So if you want to come along for the journey, and I know I have a global audience, so this might really work well for you to come and be a part of it. And when you go to bed on the 13th and wake up on the 14th, by around 10 a.m., 11 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, you will have 24 episodes in 24 hours from the How to Podcast series. Why am I doing this? Because I don't hear anybody else doing this, and I'm up for a challenge. So it's leading into Valentine's Day. It's leading into falling in love with your podcast for the month of February, all that stuff. So if you're interested and you want to see what's going to happen, 24 episodes in 24 hours with your buddy here, Dave, let's see anybody else kind of do this. I challenge you or anyone else who thinks they can do this to take up the gauntlet. And let's see if you can do 24 episodes in 24 hours. I triple dog dare you. I'm going to do it. And it's all part of our 365 days of content in 2026. So yeah, this should be fun. So if you want to stick around, you want to check it out. February 13th, starting at 10 a.m. Eastern, all the way through until completing at 11 a.m. Eastern on Saturday, the 14th, leading right into our meetup. We'd love to have you come along. Come check out the craziness, February 13th and 14th. Love to see you there. Cheers. Okay, you're still here? Awesome. Now, totally unrelated to what we just talked about on the episode, I leave a little thing at the end, question and answer, just you and me. This is a short episode today, so I thought I'd just jump on and do this so I have a little bit more time with you. There's one thing, if you're a podcast guest and you're using a PR agency, public relations agency, to get you onto podcasts, I want you to know something that you might be unaware of. Because when I talk to podcasters and guests who come on my show, they're a little shocked when they find this out. But as a potential guest, you hire an agency and you pay them money. They in turn go out and find you guest spots on podcasts. So I get these emails from PR agencies saying that this is a great guest, be a great guest for your show. I talk to a lot of really great PR agents, and they know my show, they know me, and they send me great people. Here's the catch. The money that you're paying to these agents to get you onto my show, not one penny of that money actually comes to me as the host. Did you know that? All of the money goes to the PR agent to make this thing happen, for you to be on this show or one of my other shows. And so as the host of the show, the one who has built the community, the one who has created the space, the one that shows up on a regular basis, whether you come as a guest or not, I'm still here. I'm building this all the time. This is blood, sweat, and tears for me as a host. Not a single penny of the money you give to a PR agent comes to the host. Now, is it mandatory that I get paid for you to come on my show? No, I don't have that stipulation in for any of my guests. But it would be kind of nice to know that if you're paying your PR agent, I don't know, $1,000 a month, that something would make its way to the host. I don't know, it just seems to be, there's something not right there. And so as a PR agent, I know you are in business to make money, and you're in business to serve your guests and get them onto podcasts. But without our shows, without podcasters, you would have nowhere to place your guest, and you'd have no way to earn that money. So I'm just putting it out there into the world. And as a guest on podcasts, I want you to be aware that most likely that host sitting there on the screen recording with you and pouring into you and giving you a spot on their show is not making any money from your PR agent at all. And you just need to be aware of that, and maybe have a conversation with your PR agent and see if there's something better that can be done on behalf of all the other podcasters who are paying for their hosting site, paying for editing, paying for their websites, paying for their Calendly, paying for all these things. And your PR agent is taking the money and we're doing the work. Something to consider. I'm not being negative. I'm just letting you know. The money's not coming down to us as hosts. So just be aware of that the next time you show up as a guest on someone's podcast through a PR agent that you've paid to get you onto that show. The host isn't making anything, most likely. So just keep that in mind. Thanks for being here. How to Podcast series, howtopodcast.ca.